night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid, just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, won't you stand, won't you stand by me. Hi, how you doing? Justin here. Today we are checking out Stand By Me by the great Ben E. King. All-time classic song, this one. Very, very popular. Great sing-along for parties and stuff as well. There's lots of approaches to playing this song, but today we're going to be specifically looking at a beginner version using a capo or capo at the 2nd fret and the chords G, E minor, C and D. We're also going to have a look at adding in a percussive backbeat, which is a really cool trick. Probably not for straight-up beginners, but definitely progressing beginners, or when you finish the beginner's course on my site, you might want to come back and revisit that technique because it sounds really cool. But it's a great one. You can play it lots of different ways. You can do it fingerstyle, you can do it as a ballad, you can do it as kind of give it a bit more of a groove. There's lots of different approaches, so I'm going to give you the basics and you can have a bit of fun with it, creating your own version. So as usual, we're going to start off by looking at a really, really super duper simple version. Just 4 down strums to the bar strumming. The chord progression itself is very, very simple. We just got 2 bars of G, 2 bars of E minor, 1 bar of C, 1 bar of D, and then 2 bars of G again. So let's actually play through that now as well, because it's pretty much the same chord sequence all of the way through the whole song. So starting off with the G chord now. Actually, before we start, there's quite a few different ways of playing a G chord. The one that I like the sound of for this song is the 4-fingered G. So 3rd fret, 2nd fret, open, open, 3rd fret, 3rd fret. That's 3 above the capo I'm talking about. So fingers 3 and 4, 3 frets above the capo on the thinnest 2 strings. It's the one I like, but you could use any other variation of playing G that you feel comfortable with. So we've got a G chord there for 2 bars. So G, 2, 3, 4, and the 2nd bar of G, 2, 3, 4 to E minor, 2, 3, 4, and a 2nd bar of E minor. Then a bar of C, 1 bar of D, and then back to G for 2 bars. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. When the G, 2, 3 has G, 2, 3, 4, E minor, and the land is another bar of E minor, and the C chord goes to D chord, then to G for 2 bars. Then it's G again, and another bar of G. Oh, I, E minor, won't be another bar of E minor, just a C as you D, stand by G. And then a 2nd bar of G chord, the chorus starts on G again, by G, oh, I, G, stand by E minor. And I just said G, and it's actually a 2nd bar of E minor, but hopefully you knew what I mean. That was C chord, then to D chord, and then to G for 2 bars again. A little bit of a fluff there, but I'm sure you're going to forgive me in the chorus. It is just simply again G, G, E minor, C, D, G, G, okay? Now the one little variation of that I want to point out before we go getting any more fancy with it is the very last bar of G before the chorus. I very often play it as a D chord. In fact, most bands that I've ever played this on have changed that last chord there to a D chord, okay? Because it just kind of gives it a little pick up into the chorus. So go from the G, I won't be afraid. No, I, E minor, won't be afraid, just a C as you D, stand by G. Here we go. So D chord, G, by me. Okay, it's a very, very common little variation. If you were playing it in the band, you'd either want to discuss it first, whether you're going there, or just keep your ears open. And if you hear the bass player or keyboard player or whatever moving to a D chord there, you could join them. But you don't have to. It's not on the original Ben E. King version, that little change. So would be up to you. And it's because of that simplicity, I should add, that it means that it's kind of open for so much interpretation for you, because it is the same chord sequence throughout. So one thing that you want to at least bear in mind is maybe doing something slightly different rhythmically for the choruses than the verses. Otherwise, if you just did it exactly the same all the way through, it might get a little bit boring for the listener. You know, I mean, an incredible vocal kind of can transcend that stuff. You know, if you've got to, or you're doing a group thing and everyone's having a sing along in the chorus, that makes the chorus a little different. You know, but if you're playing it on your own, or you're the sole accompaniment, try and find a slightly different rhythm pattern to use for the choruses than the verses. But there's really so many different patterns. You should go through any rhythm patterns that you know and see what ones you like the sound of. You know, Old Faithful, the down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down. Very, very common kind of pattern for this song. You could definitely use that. It's probably the most common one if I just see people, you know, playing it at a party or something. That's probably the most common pattern there that you can use. But what I'd like to show you today is this idea of playing on a backbeat. Now, playing on a backbeat is putting an accent on beats 2 and 4, which is when, if you look at a drummer, they've got a drum that they hit here. And there's a really big one on the floor, and the other really important one is this one that's called the snare drum. So you have this doof, ka, doof, ka. The doof being the big kick one, excuse my really terrible beatboxing, and the ka being this snare drum that's normally played on beats 2 and 4. And we can do a really good kind of snare drum impression on the guitar by letting our hands hit on the strings and then strumming once the outside part of your hand lands on the strings and then does a strum, okay? So it takes a little bit of practice. You're not going to get it right away. There's a whole lesson on it on my site. Muted strumming, I think I've called it. But it wants to become one motion, okay? So the hand hits the strings and then does the strum. Say it starts off as 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then eventually you can just, it becomes one motion, okay? Really good idea to practice it without the fretting hand, because if you've got the fretting hand on, you can kind of just strum like that, normal strumming, but mute the strings with that hand. You get kind of the same effect, but you can't really do that while you're holding chords, right? So a really good idea is to practice it without the strumming hand on, otherwise because it'll make it obvious if you're doing this kind of thing, you're not quite getting it right, okay? So trying to get that, the hand comes first, then the strum, okay? So 1, 2 to start off with, and eventually you can make it, you can see it just looks like a down strum. Oh, there's a bit of a rogue string ringing out there. But that's how you want to practice it, okay? Like I said, I'll put a link in the description as well for exactly a direct link to that exercise. Not a beginner technique, but definitely something that you want to take. You know, beginners just use whatever strumming patterns you got, but to pick it up to that next level, I think it's a really cool little trick, right? So what you want to then do is incorporate it into a strumming pattern. So if we do it with a G chord, so get your G chord down, and we'll do a down strum on beat 1, the muted hit on beat 2, and then an upstroke after it, and then another muted hit on beat 4. So we end up with this: 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Down, mute, up, mute. Down, mute, up. Okay, the upstroke, it is possible to do it with a downstroke as well, but using an upstroke will encourage you to be able to add in other strums later on. That's kind of the idea, the reason it's an upstroke. So down, mute, up, mute. Down, mute, up, mute. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Play along with me if you can. If it's a bit fast, take a bit of time to work on it on your own. They don't always come out exactly how you want, from my experience, even though I've been doing them for all of these years. I mean, if I'm at a recording date or something, I really concentrate on it, but if I stop thinking about it, I'm kind of waiting for it to not happen while I'm talking to you. Seems to be going okay so far, but very often I just get a rogue one that just, the hit doesn't quite come out right, you know. It's a really good exercise this as well, just incidentally, especially if any of you guys want to play and sing at the same time. Getting a rhythm pattern on a chord and then trying to have a conversation with someone. Describe anything you like. Really good exercise to make sure that your kind of rhythm is solid enough. Because if you're singing, you have to be thinking about what the words are and whether you're in tune and all of that sort of stuff. You don't want to be thinking about your rhythm pattern. Okay? Really good exercise. Just sit in there. 1, mute, up, down, mute. 1, 2, and down. Okay? It's a really, really nice little pattern that. As soon as you introduce that into the song, it's just got a night has come and the land is dark. You can hear it's got a different groove. And the only that you see. Often with these things as well, try and make sure that it feels good. Okay, it's not just about doing it right, it's about doing it. You'll know inside when it's kind of groovy and it makes you feel good, then that's kind of really what you're looking for. It's not just about playing the maths, you know, it's bigger than that. Music's bigger than maths. It's got something else going on which is kind of cool and feels good. So whenever you're working on that kind of groove, try and make sure that you make it feel good as well as, you know, just playing it good, you know. So that would be a really good one for the verses. For the chorus, it's probably a good idea to have one that's slightly more active, or slightly more strummed. So one that I can give you that I think would work really well as to complement the chorus, to lift it up a little bit, would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, which is down, up, mute, up, mute. Down, up, mute, up, mute. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 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 Now I've just noticed as well, I'm very often putting a little upstroke after 4. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. There's a little, very, very quiet. It's okay, it's not, and this is what I'm talking about, the reason that we do the upstroke after 4. It's promoting keeping your hand moving, because if you notice, when I'm doing this, if I wasn't doing the muted here, you can see that my hand's moving exactly the same, well, not exactly the same, okay, but the motion, the down, up, down, up, down, up thing is going on all the same, okay? Even if I was going, no matter what sort of pattern I was doing, keeping that hand moving the same is really important. And if you get used to doing that, what you'll find is as you play the patterns and you relax with them a little bit, they'll start to kind of grow and you'll play a little extra strum here and there, and that's okay. You know, it's that strumming patterns aren't necessarily, you know, that rigid that they have to be adhered to all the time. You know, you want it to feel good, and sometimes having some extra little strums in there is a good idea, which is again the importance of trying to keep that hand moving. I think it's a really good, very, very good fun exercise, and this is a great song for that because it can get done so many different ways. You know, later on if you're doing my beginner's course, when you encounter fingerstyle is a lovely one on this one as well. You know, there's lots of different ways of approaching it. So learn the basic version first with the simple strumming. If you're progressing enough as a beginner, you know, try every different rhythm pattern that you've got on this song and see which ones you like the sound of, which one can be your version. Doing a fingerstyle one would be a really, really nice one. It would, you know, doesn't really matter exactly any particular patterns, but I give you some as part of the course that you might like to try. And for more advanced players, you might like to try this muted percussive hit there on the backbeat, you know, playing a percussive hit on the backbeat. It's a very, very cool idea, and I think it's something that most people would enjoy having in their repertoire because it works in loads of songs, not just this one. So have fun with that, and I'll see you for plenty more lessons and songs very soon. Please subscribe if you like what I do. You take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.